Well, I was going to say, let's get into it, but let's wait for Ginny.
Queen Bee is like super late.
She's more than 5 minutes down.
Yeah, she's got to pay for dinner. Hey everyone, this is Evelien from Reppin. Look, you know my podcast. You know Reppin? It's real conversations. I've sat down with celebrities, changemakers, and everyday legends. People redefining identity, character, and what it really means to show up. Now I'm kicking it up a notch. Welcome to Reppin After Hours. It's going to be an unfiltered, behind-the-scenes series, and it gets personal. You're going to get to know me a bit better because I'm bringing you into my circle, introducing you to people who have shaped me. There's also going to be leaders from across production, publicity, entertainment. We're talking about people who run the game in their space. And better yet, you're going to walk away with actionable tips. Everything from how to pitch, to what lands, to what flops, and really, overall, how to step up your game. Today, I've got Ginni Saraswati. She is a podcast czar and founder of Ginni Media, which is a podcast production company that does everything from coaching to art to editing. And I've also got Anna Ratzela. She's the marketing director at Red Circle, a podcast monetization platform. Anna knows what advertisers are looking for, and she's going to talk about how you can actually lock down sponsors. This isn't a lecture, it's a hangout. So pull up a chair and let's get into it. By the way, I'm a little scared at what's going to come out of our mouths.
Listen, you invited us, so it's,
Yeah,
that's all you.
I know. So this is definitely going to be rated explicit.
Yeah, can we swear, actually?
Yeah, of course you can fucking swear.
Okay, great. Love it.
Come on, Ginny, don't be shy.
We've got a lot to catch up on. I'm Christian now and I don't swear. I'm kidding. Your face is like, what? Get off the podcast now.
And here we are off to the races. There's going to be a lot of editing on this one.
No, please don't edit.
No, I'm actually not going to edit.
I want it uncensored.
This is going to be completely uncensored,
unfiltered,
which is why I'm terrified.
Unhinged.
Thank you so much for making time to do this. I was just telling Anna when we were waiting for you, Miss Thing here.
Well, while we were bitching about you being late.
Yeah. One of the genesis of me wanting to do this was really getting an excuse to see you guys because we hadn't been able to see each other or connect in like so long despite our best attempts. As Anna pointed out, here we're all in New York and we still can't get it together. So I really wanted to use this as an excuse to see you guys and connect. You know, I've been kind of reflecting, and I like to take stock of my life from time to time. Well, I make it a daily practice, actually. And I'm so grateful for my friends that I really count on. Going beyond that, who I'm really inspired by and I'm so deeply grateful for are my women friends are just impressive, capable, smart women who just get shit done and don't make a federal case out of it. And they just say, okay, you guys take care of business. You do a billion things at once. You do it in stride. And for that, I sort of also wanted to kind of get you guys on because you are the masters and queens of your domains. And I sort of wanted to share a little bit of that here. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having us.
That was really sweet, Evelien. I love that you are reflecting daily. I think that's such an important thing to do, especially living in New York. Like you mentioned, we get caught up in life. And I know I certainly feel that way, but that was a really beautiful sentiment. So that was really sweet. Thank you, my friend.
And could not agree more.
And also what's really cool about this call is not only am I getting a chance to see you guys, because again, it's been so hard to connect. And I have to apologize for my part of it. It's to see this call, and I'm going to show my age here. It's kind of like the United Colors of Benetton, because like you're from Finland, Anna. Ginny, you're clearly not from the Bronx. I'm also a person of color. I mean, we're minorities. So it's pretty amazing. Anna, you and I met at some podcast conference, and you fucking blew me away. And then Ginny, we connected through Anna, and you do everything. So I sort of wanted to get into it.
Did I connect you guys?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It's been that long.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, did Ginny introduce me to Ev? Like, how did we actually all get together?
I 3 years ago since we had that brunch, right?
Has it been 3 or more?
Been 3 years because I met my now wife that year. So I've been married. Since then, engaged, married, opened up a studio. That's happened since we've caught up last. And I still haven't watched Orange is the New Black. So there's some things that haven't changed.
Basically, the last time that we saw each other, Ginny was single, and now she's married.
No.
Like-
No. The last time we saw each other was at your wedding.
That's actually true. That is true. That was so much fun, by the way.
Yeah.
That
was so much fun.
We saw each other at my wedding, and then before that, we caught up. Yeah, so there's big transitions for all of us. So,
Yeah. Well, that's partially why we haven't seen each other in like 1,000 years, because we've all been so busy. But let's get to it, because Anna, you and I met at a podcast conference. Let's talk a little bit about your background and also then how you connected with Ginni and what hit it off for you guys. Anna, you were the CEO of Zvook, which was a podcasting agency in marketing and ads, and you literally are the expert. Tell me a little bit more about what you're doing, because you've transitioned to a new company and you're running that division.
Yes, and actually the new company is my former competitor. So it's basically continuing the vision that I had from my startup for making podcast advertising super accessible to brands. Now my current company that I work for and I run marketing there is actually having that same vision. And so I feel kind of very blessed that I get to continue that vision with a company that's bigger, that's kind of way further along. We were always looking up to them and be like, oh, like one day we're going to be like those guys and we're going to beat them. And, if you can't beat them, you have to join them. So that's what I did. I've always just been so passionate about, just as easy you guys are, which is why you're in podcasting, just passionate about the power of storytelling and audio storytelling, when people are really in your ears and they're so close and intimate to you when you listen to podcasts. And so obviously a great channel for brands to share their message and share about their products and services with their audiences. But the challenge has been that it's really, there are hundreds, thousands, millions of podcasts out there. How do you choose the ones that really align with your brand? And if you want to do host-read ads, meaning a host is recommending your product or service, it's such a personal connection. And if you want to work with, let's say, 50 different podcasts, how do you actually reach out to all of them, right? There's so much logistics there. And so it was really, really hard for the advertisers to figure that out. So when I was building my startup, I wanted to build a platform that makes it super easy for brands to find the most relevant podcasts and scale host-read ads. While we weren't able to kind of get it past a certain point for my startup, I now joined a company called Red Circle that is doing exactly that, helping brands scale host-read podcast ads across hundreds of shows, and obviously helping the podcasters to monetize and work with really cool brands that they really align with.
Awesome. Now, how did you meet Ginni?
That's a funny story, actually. Now I remember how we actually met. Okay, this is many years ago, right? When I was single, and I went on one date with this guy who had a podcast. Ginni, I think he was working with you, right?
Yeah.
And so he was like, oh, you should really meet. Like, she's really cool. I can connect you guys. And he connected us. Obviously, I dropped him after the first date. But with Ginni, our love story still continues to this date. So something good came out of that date.
What clicked for you two?
For me, I think one thing I loved when I connected with Anna was there's things that she did that I do. And the one thing, I think you still do this, Anna, because I see your Instagram stories, holding a coffee, walking around New York. Now, I know that's something foreigners do and stories, so Ev, you're probably rolling your eyes, but I love doing that. I love holding a coffee. Even now, like when we go to like a coffee shop, I'm like, I'm holding a coffee
Why?
and I'm walking in New York. Like, because it's just cool. Carrie Bradshaw said it was cool.
Thank you.
So I think it's cool. I don't know. I know, Anna, you've kind of looked up and envisioned New York as a home for you and a place to be. And that was the same story for me. So I think that part of being two girls not from America, now building their companies in New York, the city that they love, thinking of Carrie Bradshaw every day, reading our Big or Mrs. Big. What I don't want to, no, that's mean. I don't know what is a big, but like, that part I could really relate to.
Yeah, like listen, the vibe, the energy. I just feel like there are people that you meet that you click with instantly, and it's such an easy connection. It was very easy. And again, like we're so busy, and just what you said, Ev, like everybody's running a million different things, and there's like life happens and whatnot. But then whenever you do catch up, it's so easy. It's like catching up with an old friend. There's never like an awkward, like, oh, so how are you? And like, it's like getting right into it, right into the like nitty gritty. So I love that. I love the ease of that connection, and obviously being like in the same, industry, and like Ginni said, that just building things. We're not from New York. Like Ginni helped me with my visa. She wrote me a recommendation letter, like all that stuff, right? It's just so many things to relate to.
Ginni, you have Ginni Media, which is a podcast company that does like everything from production to advertising, scripting, coaching. Can you talk a little bit about the expertise that you bring and some of the things that you want listeners to know? 3 things that would help your podcast to step up your game.
3 things. I feel like I'm talking in like this keynote, Ev, so I really appreciate you calling me the podcast star. But I think nowadays podcasting's evolved so much. Even what we're doing now, we're in video. Like I think there's now a huge visual component, because if you look at it, I don't know, I'm not showing my age here. I grew up with talk shows like the Oprah Winfrey Show. Then you have all these sorts of talk shows that you grew up with, right? The Oprah Winfrey Show was a prime example for me, because that was what was the medium at the time. It was television, daytime television. She was the queen of talk show back then. She had different interviews. Now you look at the evolution of digital media. Podcasts are exactly that, except there's a multiple consumption source, right? It's through your podcast apps, it's through YouTube. You can listen or watch. You've got the option of doing that. You can listen on the go. You can watch in your living room, in your TV, wherever you want to watch it on your phone. So I think there's this evolution of podcasting. So I think when you're starting, think about who you want to reach and how you want to reach them. So is it just going to be through audio, or is it going to be audio and video? That could be just a super simple, I'm going to do this. The other thing I would say is think about what Anna mentioned before, storytelling. How can you storytell in a way that connects with people, and don't try to tell someone else's story? It has to be your own, because due to the intimacy that Anna was speaking to about the space, people will be able to tell if you're being disingenuous very quickly, especially because if you're in someone's ear and you're like, this person's not really being genuine, they're like putting it on, you can really sense it in podcasting. So storytelling is very important. And the third thing I say is don't be afraid. Now, this might be controversial. Don't be afraid to be polarizing. And I say that because you either get people to love you or you'll get people to not agree with you, right? Or people will absolutely hate you. But all 3 spectrums, they're talking about you in some way. And there's no money in the middle. It's like an 80-20 thing. 20% of people will love you, 80% may not, but there's no money in the middle. There's no equity in the middle. So when I mean don't be afraid to be polarizing, I'm not saying go out there and be a meanie or a troll. I'm saying just be authentic to your brand. Like think about Nike. They're literally telling people winning isn't for everybody. That means everybody who isn't wearing Nike are losers. That's not pissing people off, but it's very, very aligned with their brand statement. They only put gear on goats, like your Simone Biles, your LeBron James. Like they're very clear. So those are the 3 things I'd say when you're starting a podcast to think about.
I fucking love that. I really, and especially the kind of the authenticity part, because, people talk so much about authenticity these days. It's like become this thing that I think is a little bit overhyped. Like people be putting, recording their cries and recording giving birth. Like the only thing I think people don't record is like,
they're recording that, I'm sure.
Everything else is like out there, literally. I guess there are platforms for that. So yes, everything's being recorded and shared. But I feel like people are starting to game authenticity too. Like you'll be like, oh, hey guys, I just wanted to be really honest and authentic. So here I am. Like, why are you saying that? So I think it's so important what Ginni said about just be you. Don't be afraid of being you. And also this whole polarizing thing, like having an opinion is interesting. Having no opinion is fucking boring, right? So you have an opinion, keep to that opinion. I hate when people answer questions and they go, well, it depends. On one hand this and on the other hand that, but also you could do this. Like, let me not offend anybody. Your opinion should not be, it's not offending anybody, it's your opinion, right? Like you can be kind in expressing that opinion, but it's your opinion. Like be firm about it. I think that's what creates the most interesting content. And I agree with Ginni, is like the worst thing that can happen to your any kind of content is that people don't talk about it.
Yeah. I just want to add to that too, Anna, because if you are, and I'm going to use the word polarizing, if you are strong in your convictions, if you do authentically share your opinion, do you know what it actually teaches people? It teaches people how to converse with you and disagree with you and respect you at the same time. Because at the moment we're in a culture where people are saying one thing and people are going the complete other way because they don't want to be cancelled. We are missing that element of healthy debate. of how can I understand your perspective. That very core of human empathy in communication is missing. So that's where it has to start. You have to be blatantly honest and authentic.
Let me extend that and also be devil's advocate. I agree with everything that you're saying. I do think the danger of it is that conversations and topics are so nuanced. There's so many variables in every situation. So it's difficult to have a conversation in its truest form on the internet when obviously you can't cover every single perspective. It's impossible. And it's impossible to have a conversation. I think people are also gaming the system and trying to be polarizing also.
That's very true.
Trying to instigate something and say something inflammatory or sensational. I certainly echo your statement in terms of people are gaming authenticity. That authenticity now is like this sort of zeitgeist culture where everyone's like trying to be super authentic. But what I want to say is also a conversation suggests that two people are open to participating.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, and one of the cruxes of my podcast is I think people are listening to respond and not listening to learn. There's also a difference between hearing and listening. And there's a chasm of difference between the two. And I think we need to sort of be able to separate that. So I think that's the one danger in terms of saying, being polarizing. I think, yes, you need to be strong in your convictions and your beliefs. But don't say things just to fucking get likes and shit. But I think what's great about the three of us kind of getting together is that between the three of us, we kind of have all bases of podcasting covered. But Anne, I want to kind of get back to you a little bit in terms of advertising and marketing. For people who want to get host-read ads, how can you get a sponsor? How do you get that? Like, can you give me 3 tips on like how a beginner could potentially find a sponsor?
First of all, create great content, right? So take care of your listeners, whether you have 1,000 listeners, 10,000, 50,000, whatever that might be.
5.
Take care of your 5, it's a great start.
By the way, thank you for listening to my show, you got.
Well, I know we're 2 of the 5. I'm joking.
We're almost the vast majority. We're almost 50% of your listeners.
I need a little extra downloads. Will you just click them, please?
No, but it's so important, right? Because the content is the reason why your listeners go listen to your show, and that's what actually attracts the advertisers. And there are so many advertisers that want to now work with a lot of niche, smaller shows because they know that their listeners are way more engaged, maybe even than the ones that have, millions of listeners. So really take care of that content. Second thing, if you want to make money, you do have to have a certain base listenership, right? If you have 500 listeners a month, chances are, even if somebody wanted to work with you, just the math isn't necessarily mathing. Like you can get $2.50, but I don't know if you're going to want to go through that. Sometimes it might be good for your credibility to say, yeah, you know what, even if it's a very small amount, I may want to work with somebody. But realistically speaking, don't rush that part either, right? Because are you in it for the money? No, or at least you shouldn't, right? So if you're not in it for the money, you're in it for the content. Keep creating great content and growing and focusing more on that. And then once you reach that threshold of 10,000 listeners, even like a month, right, like and plus, and that sounds like a lot, but again, for you to make money, it means that it's not just a hobby. It is then becoming a more professional tool for you to share content, inform, educate, entertain, whatever that is. And so if you're looking to make money, then it's no longer necessarily a hobby. And I think sometimes people kind of mix that a little bit. They're like, yeah, like I do it because I love it and it's my hobby, but I also want to make money. And why isn't somebody coming and paying me? Like, look, those two things don't necessarily go hand in hand, right? So don't rush that process. But then once you are ready, when we're talking about, at least or like in the thousands, when it comes to unique listenership, and you know that your listeners are quite engaged, now you can start thinking about monetizing. And there are basically 2 ways. One is work with platforms like ours, right? Red Circle, you come to us. But then there is also, when you're just starting, you can just reach out yourself to some brands that, maybe there's some smaller brands, maybe they're a startup that, maybe it's a beauty startup and they do makeup that you really, really love. Reach out, be like, I love your product. Can we work together, right? So that's a really great start for somebody that is relatively small and maybe doesn't, is not at the place where you have to engage third parties. Just get shit done yourself first. And then once you know that it works, then you have a really good case to go to other brands or work with third parties.
Those are really good tips. Ginni, you, again, you guys do so much there and you run your own show. How can people step up their game to make their show sound good?
So with me, this is not the best example. I am married now, so that means I have Labubu's and a cat stroller. This is married life.
What the hell is a labubu?
Oh.
Girl, what? I cannot believe you're.
I'm going to get you a Labubu.
I'm a New Yorker.
Right? Like, no, this is not acceptable, Evelyn. Like,
Seriously, what is a labubu?
I have 5. My wife has 5 of them in the closet. I don't want to get.
Oh, are those creepy things?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I don't understand what that is.
They're pretty expensive too. Like, it's not like you just can go get one for $5. Like, they're actually pricey. It's an investment, supposedly.
When you get married, sometimes information filters in and sometimes you filter out information. So this is I know what Labubus are. They're dolls that you put on your handbags and your backpacks. And look, they're cute and you make content with it. So your question is, how do you just start with good videos? Or good audio or video? Invest in a microphone. I mean, it's a one-time investment. You can, even if you get a USB microphone that plugs in, I mean, it's not the highest quality audio, but it's better than no microphone at all. Like, start there. This baby here, it's a common mic. It's an XLR mic. It's a little bit more expensive, but you can always upgrade to there. But start with a good mic and then start with a good webcam. Just something like that. Just these little investments over time make a difference. To some of my clients, and obviously if you have the budget, you can do this. I always say do the hard things first because things get easier later, and it's proven to be true. So if you do the hard things first and you invest in the good equipment, if you invest in the good set or whatever you want for your podcast room, then down the track, all those things like, oh, I got to now upgrade my mic, I've got to upgrade. If you're really serious about this, especially if you're a brand or a business, if you're really serious about starting a podcast, do the hard things first. Like, buy the good equipment, do the research, do all the things at yourself at the beginning, because it will get easier over time, because doing it the other way around is more difficult.
Such great advice.
Excellent tips. What else?
Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing too is, what are the main pain points when clients come to me like, all right, I'm very good at this part, but I'm not good at this part. What do I talk about? So this is where people second guess themselves. They're like, I'm really, really good at this industry, or I'm really, really good at this topic, but I don't know how to make other people interested in what I'm talking about. And that's where, again, it's that layer of authenticity that comes in. It's that layer of, okay, I've just got to be really genuine. If you're genuinely excited about things, look at TikTok evolution. Look at, what do you call them? I'm pronouncing this terribly. Mukbangs, where like the asthma, when people are eating things and people are watching people eat things.
I'm getting
like
so schooled right now.
Right.
ASMR.
Oh, ASMR.
Yeah, ASMR.
Yes.
ASMR. Yeah. So I'm not that cool to know all these, but like, you see how people are making content. Like, they're just being themselves eating food, right? People are watching it. So I don't find comfort in it. I just want to order more food when I see that.
But it is weirdly soothing, though.
Yeah. So yeah, my point there is to like not second guess yourself too much. Again, it's that point of just show up with what you know and what you're excited about. Someone is going to find that content, and especially you're going to be showing up authentically. And I would say the third thing is invest in a good team. If you don't want to do the editing, if you don't want to do the show notes, if you don't want to do the graphics, if you don't want to do invest in a good team, because your team are an extension of you. Everything that they do ripples your brand, whether you're a company, a person, whatever you do, they're like your little, whoever you don't want to call it, they're like
representatives,
the person or the extension of your representatives. That's the word. Representatives of what you do and who you are, and you want them to be aligned with you. So invest in a good team.
And by the way,
there's
Ginni's got an excellent team. I've worked with her team on some podcast stuff, so they're amazing. So, which is not surprising, because I think like, a person like you, I think like the leader, the CEO, the founder is a really representative of the whole company, of the culture. Like, I'm not surprised that you have a great team, because you're great and you're excellent and you have high standards. So not surprising, but just wanted to kind of give that shout out.
I appreciate that too. It's interesting because I'm not going to name names, but I work with some brands, or worked with some brands.
I want that offline conversation.
Offline. It's going to be an hour-long offline.
And like offline, and like I would know this client, I'd know them socially, but then I'd work with them and then I'd see how their team operate. The team are very reactive. There's no context. There's no communication. And I'm like, what's going on? You're sending me like Slack messages at 10:30 p.m. and at 5:30. I'm like, what is going on? And you notice there's some things going on here. And then eventually over time you see it all unravel. But Anna, to your point, like I do think it is should to take responsibility. Everything does start from the top. You set the tone, right? And then if you're expecting your team to stay online for 24 hours, not get rest, they're probably high on anxiety. And then I'm like, now you want me to coach your team on how to be operational experts? Like, that's not what you hired me for. Like, I'm not going to tell them. This is probably another skill we could talk about, the three of us. One thing that's concerning for me that's happening in my niece's generation and probably the new grads of college is the communication skills and the lack of critical thinking and discernment.
That's a whole nother series.
Slack, just random, hey, I need this. I'm like, okay, who are you? Hello. What is your name? And why do you need this? It's like, can you just give me a little context before coming at me like that? It's like walking down the street, someone coming and going, give me this. It's like, you would be just like really alarmed. It's like, that's no different in a workplace context if a random stranger comes to you demanding something. So that, we'll talk about that.
I think we hit a nerve, Anna.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I think right
2
there.
drinks in, and this topic, we're gonna be having conversation. But the thing is, like, we all agree though. Like, I feel like we see this in a very similar way. And I actually, it's funny. This conversation, like, I have never heard anybody to say like the opposite, but somehow it still exists. Like this whole trend of like people not taking responsibility, having such high expectation towards what they should receive. They don't want to be humble. Like you're supposed to start, be it like, I don't know, your first job out of college or maybe your first position at a new company or whatever. People are expecting that they already should be at a certain level and somebody like owes them something.
It's entitlement.
Which is weird. It's entitlement.
And no humility.
But it's so crazy that like when you hear people talking about it, everybody's like, oh yeah, it's so terrible, people are so entitled. I've never like heard the other side. I don't know if like those people just don't take part in this conversation. Like it would be really interesting to be like, why do you feel like you're entitled? Like what gives you, but they're not talking about it. I think that everybody understands that that's not a cool way to go about it.
They're probably too entitled to even notice.
But I think that also plays into the lack of humility, because if you don't have humility, then you don't kind of take a second to look around and reflect when you don't have that humility. Here's the other thing that I sort of wanted to get to, which is your work ethic and leadership. You guys get so much shit done. And that's another reason why we haven't seen each other in like 100 years.
That's a bad excuse.
We've tried,
We have tried.
And we're going to try again. But like just how much work everything takes to make things happen. And none of you guys make a big thing out of it. And let me just preface this a little context here. Ginni, we had brunch. I don't remember the last time we had brunch, but you were sharing some experiences or growing pains during your wedding preparation when people simply didn't read documents that were requested and you took the time to fill it out. And all of that information was there. And none of it was read or processed, which lent into a major chaos when it's already a huge day for you, which was your wedding. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's emotional stuff. And I'm not going to get into specifics. And Anna, girl, you got to hear the stories.
I wasn't there at that brunch, at that debrief.
No, but you need to get that debrief because
I'll get that tonight.
It was kind of epic on many levels. You both are so driven, but you're not driven by ambition. You drive your ambition. So you're not consumed by your ambition where you run people over. How do you guys define leadership and how do you guys manage that? Because you guys don't hold back with your work and your practices, but you guys are not divas and egomaniacs. Can you talk a little bit about sort of where that comes from and why that's such a touch point for you both?
That's a deep question.
Thank you.
I think
have we met?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you should do a podcast. You're a great interviewer.
I'm going to try.
It kind of goes back to who you are as a person. I think that's really at the core of it. If you're a good, kind person, if you've been raised to be considerate and empathetic. You can't switch that off when you become a business leader or, when you have career ambitions or business ambitions or whatever. You can't really switch that off. And to be very honest, there has been times when I was running my startup and, you look around like, we raised some VC funding and 2.5% of all VC-backed startups have a female co-founder. So 2.5%, right? It's very, very small. And then you look around and you're like, oh, like everybody's kind of raising funds left and right, like tens of millions of dollars. And like we, kind of, really struggle to raise it. We did raise some money, but not as much as some of the other guys with probably like weaker execution, whatever. And then there is a point, and there was a point when I was like, should I be an asshole? Should I? And I think it's such a fine line because it is true that you can start changing the game when you're in the game. It's very hard to change the game when you're a spectator and be like, oh, this is how the game should be played. And everybody's like, who are you to say? So in a way, you have to get in the rink first. And to get in the rink, you have to be able to play that game well enough. And so there's always this fine line of like, hey, should I be like that? Would I get further? Would I be able to raise more money? Would I be more successful? And then I can, change the game. But ultimately, it also comes down to who you are as a person. Can I go to, to sleep at night and close my eyes and be like, I didn't fuck anybody over today, and I'm not going to do that tomorrow. That's not who I am. And if that means that I'm going to raise less money or my startup is going to be valued lower or whatever, I'm okay with that. Having said that, I do think that it is important that we, especially, as women, we sit at the fucking table. We bring the table. We put our fist down sometimes and be like, no, that's not okay. Here's how it's going to run, right? You have to be a little bit like that. It does not mean that you have to be an asshole, but you have to find your voice and use it. And coming back to, what you were saying earlier about, people feel like they need to be polarizing for the sake of it or whatever. This is where I think it comes down to being a great communicator. And this is why the podcasting space is so fascinating, because I think for you to be able to also be successful in this craft, in, running your podcast, is you have to be a great communicator. People are going to listen. You can have whatever opinions. There are people out there that, that have wild opinions, but they communicate pretty well and people listen to them and they become really big. And so I think that it kind of all ties down to you can be, sharp and on it, and you can be honest and you can be direct and you can demand what's yours. But when you communicate it well, it's going to be received better. And that's, I think, the way you get in the rink and in the game. And then you can start changing it.
I echo what Anna says, but I think there's two things that resonate with me personally in my style of leadership. And one is creating the emotional safety for my team members. And the other part is modeling behavior to a point of you set the standard and you set the tone for your company as a leader. We were talking about that before too. I've witnessed leaders set the tone in terrible ways, attacking your employees for while sales targets are not reached on Monday morning. Think of the context of how that affects the employee. Like that's the first meeting interaction they have at work of the week, and they're being berated at by their CEO. Not going to really create emotional safety. So I think emotional safety is so important. It's always been important, but particularly now with the hybrid remote work situation. My company has always been 100% remote. Now I'm starting to move more to a hybrid model. Like I kind of go in, I bring people in and that sort of thing. But emotional safety is where people can really thrive. They can be honest, they can listen, they can really, go through their challenges and share with you what they need to do or what they're feeling at the time. But it also, in a way, it also models a behavior of like how you're responding to people and not reacting to people, right? So if you're being clear about this is what's going on for me and this is what's happening for me, you're really allowing that culture of honesty. And you can't be successful without that culture. Feedback is a critical element to productivity,
absolutely.
right? Let's just be honest there. And feedback, you need to be honest about it, right? Like that's the only way you're going to grow, evolve. People who are willing to grow and evolve will always be open to feedback. People who don't want to will be defensive and shut down, right? As a leader, sometimes you do have to be like a therapist and kind of break down those barriers. Like, okay, why is this going on? And you'll get to a point where you'll find out information very quickly. And that's the other part of it where I meant about boundaries and setting the tone. Like if you see certain patterns play out, so Ev, you brought the example of my
Yes.
wedding and certain things that happened. So this particular individual we hired to be a part of our wedding, he was a vendor. There were several instances that happened. Now, had I had gone through the personal growth that I have in the last year, if I was me back then in that moment, I would have gone to his supervisor and be like, these are the patterns. These are my concerns. What are the options from here? Because I do not want to deal with that going into this day. And you've got to be brave enough to have those tough conversations too. So on one part, it's creating emotional safety. And the other part, it is having boundaries and creating standards and having those tough conversations. So you kind of toggle between the two sometimes. But I think that for me keeps me grounded in being like, I'm no different or above anybody else. We're all sharing a human experience, even at work, right? So we need to kind of figure that out too. So yeah, there's nothing like being an entrepreneur than to have a mirror held up to your face. And I feel like this is a journey that you go on as an entrepreneur running your own company. It's like, this is all your shit, deal with it.
Well said. That is so true. It's very humbling.
Tell me if you guys agree. I think a lot of that is about humility. Because if you're not willing to look at the mirror, it doesn't make a difference, right?
Yeah.
If you're driven by entitlement and ego or whatever, and it's not humility, someone could smash your face in it and you're not going to look at it. You know, so I think humility is a big thing. The list of stuff that you each have to do every single day is a lot, to say the least. I'm not saying that you guys don't have thresholds of like, ugh. We all have that threshold. Can you give me an example of maybe where you were the receiving end of someone's like shitty behavior and like what you learned from it and you made a note of it so you don't do it?
I'll bring up an example of a previous. So this is a colleague I have. I won't
Offline
say
conversation.
the relationship of the colleague, but she had a full-on meltdown on a call where she was crying, she was yelling and like saying to our team, "What is wrong with you? What's going on?" And everybody was just like, "Whoa, like this is a big overreaction." And I get it was a high stress time, but there's deeper layers here that we could unpack. But that sort of behavior is just completely contradictory to who I am. And what kind of sucks being on the other end of it is I would be that leader that, and I was in that situation, that diffuses. But that is perceived as me not caring. It's like, I can't meet you up there when you're in this situation because right now our team is feeling unsafe. So if I am to go there with you, that's not going to help the situation at all. And I think when you see these things play out, it just drives to the point of you are feeling this way because you're feeling unsupported, right? You're also feeling this way because you don't have the processes, systems, or clarity to show your team how you need to be supported. And ultimately, and this is the hardest part to swallow as an entrepreneur, ultimately all of that, even though you're feeling like shit and you're taking it out on your team, that falls on you because you didn't do your job as a leader. And that's the hardest part that I think people find to swallow. It's like, why is this on me? It goes into victim. I'm like, okay, well, this is on you because you didn't communicate what you needed. I didn't know what I needed. Well, you needed support. You were yelling at us for not giving you support. So that is what you needed. But again, like it comes to a point, Evelien, to your question, where I feel that when you partner with people, whether it be a client, a colleague, whatever it be, like a business partner, you also have to look at it to be like, it's not my role to be your therapist and it's not my role to partner with you when you're behaving that way. This is where I need to exit. So I've become more protective about who I work with because during that time, I think I just lost my mum. So I was already emotionally at like minus 200%. So to have to dig deeper and kind of calm someone else down was like, I really owed myself more in that moment. So I would say it's helped me be a bit more discerning about my expectations of who I work with. And I think that was a big lesson for me. What about you, Anna?
I love that, by the way. Like I love the reflections that you take from those situations because like you said, most people would just be like, well, what the fuck? Like, what was her problem? And da-da-da. Like, if everybody took that time, if every leader thought like you, we would have such better culture, business culture in general. I mean, it's so crazy. Like people just don't take that time. And then you're taking the time now to even like share that also with, everybody. That's another thing, right? So I think that's just really, really amazing. And I mean, this is why you are a great leader, and this is why you are where you are, in your career and with your business. I love that. I love that. I hope that this is an inspiration to many other people to think the same way. I don't know that I have like a particularly similar story. I think maybe in a different way when I closed my startup, I took some time off and then I, worked on a few different projects and I was helping this startup from Europe. We were working with the founders. They were very honest about, they needed to raise more money and all that. There was a little bit like messy, their whole cap table, whatever. But I was like, you know what? I was brought in to kind of help them with one particular area and kind of advise a little bit, like, they're running their thing. And they were telling me, hey, if we are not going to raise money by, the end of whatever, June, we're going to probably close down the startup. I was like, okay, like, thanks for letting me know. Like, it's good to know, whatever. And then come mid-June, I get an email from a lawyer telling me that, hey, this company has filed for bankruptcy and all communication now goes through us as lawyers. No word from the founders that I worked very closely with. And I could tell that they were like experiencing some issues like burnout type symptoms. But again, I'm an outsider person. I'm a contractor. Like, it's not of my business. I do my job and I do it well. And, the lawyer writes in and this is what's happening. And I'm like, hang on. So am I not going to get paid for this last month? And basically the answer was no, because they are not allowed to anymore. They're not allowed to pay any, like, now that they've put this bankruptcy in motion. And here's my thing, right? As a founder of a failed startup, I understand shit doesn't always work out. And I have complete like empathy for the fact that you had to file for bankruptcy, no issues. My issue was you didn't communicate to me that, hey, by the way, if we are not going to raise more money, we may not be able to pay your last salary. Because I'm also planning, my life and planning all these things, right? Like, I'm counting on this check to come in. And so that was just a really weird experience. And I wrote to the founder like, hey, you know what? I'm so sorry that this is happening. Again, as a founder, I understand, got no issues with that. I wish you would have communicated that with me. I wish you would have given me heads up. And I wish you could have said, hey, you know what? We're about to file for bankruptcy. So maybe we can pay your full, maybe we can pay like for 1 week of your work or whatever, like some kind of a heads up. Nothing. And I hear from the lawyer, and then the lawyer was like, yeah, it's unlikely, like, you're, whatever, they're like much bigger creditors, they're ahead of you, like, you're basically not gonna see your paycheck. But I messaged this, this founder, and I was like, you know what, I'm just disappointed about your communication. And he responded to me in a way that showed me that he understood none of what I was talking about. He was like, well, we couldn't do anything. Like, we filed for bankruptcy. Like, we can't make any payments anymore. Like, there's nothing I could do. I'm so, like, perplexed. I'm like, I'm not asking you for the money. I'm asking you to understand that you should have communicated better. And when I was a startup founder, I communicated with my team saying, hey, here's our runway. And after this, if we're not going to raise money, we're going to run out of money. I can guarantee your salaries up until this point. And after that, none. But I'm hoping, that wasn't my number one thing. And so as a leader, I think it's very humane.
But also, like, I don't think you learn a lot about people when you hold them accountable to things. People either accept responsibility or they blame or they deflect. Like, you learn a lot about someone. That's why I say feedback's so important. Like, you learn a lot about someone in that moment.
Just
like what you said, and all you wanted was clarity because you make plans. That income was influencing how you live and the decisions you make in your life. So he would be like, well, what was I supposed to? It's like, you were supposed to tell her, dude, that you couldn't pay her and therefore she couldn't make plans. Yeah.
Oh, and people are so uncomfortable, I think, like, admitting their own either mistakes or failures. And I think that's such a big, like, I've had to also write uncomfortable emails when I was a founder, right? Being like, oh, hey, here's the thing. Or like, here's why your invoice is going to be late because of this, right? Like, I'm so sorry. Here's the reason. Or whatever the case may be. Oh, so sorry. Everybody's not always going to be happy. And you have to be like, I'm sorry that this was not the experience that you liked. Well, we could have done better. Like, can I help? I'm like, do you want to hop on a call? If you want to talk to me, like, I'm here. Any questions you have, like, I'm here. It's not changing the situation, but it's just showing people that you are so willing to hear them out. You're very honest and you are going to do whatever you can to, make up for something or have like a better experience next time. Like, I don't know why people are so afraid of it.
I mean, there's so many layers here, but I think a lot of this has to come down to the people that you are. The fact that you both are just caring human beings and take the time to think about others. I'm obviously oversimplifying things. So from my perspective, I always feel like the job you do, that's not what makes you. The person you are is who you bring into the job and the work that you do and how you do it. And I think that drives everything else in terms of how you speak with people, interact with people, how you lens a situation, how you decide to handle a situation. The fact that you know, Ginni, you talked about emotional safety. That's something that I think needs to be really discussed. You know, we talk about like work-life balance. Let's talk about emotional safety. And I think that's missing from the conversation. I don't even think that's on the radar, to be honest with you. You know, Anna, all you were asking is, hey, can you just have let me know, like the courtesy to let me know so I can figure out my life? But somehow those fundamental and rudimentary lessons, in my perspective, it's lacking because self-driven needs or priorities are overriding everything else.
Yeah, and I think that that's why, again, like coming back to like how the three of us have connected and have stayed friends and always have, you know, things to talk about and we support one another. It comes from, I think, having those shared values of like caring about somebody, supporting them. And you guys are always like, hey, is there something that you need? Like, how can we support? What can we do? Like, and the fact that Ev's been too busy to have drinks with us, like, we understand. We're there, like, hey, girl, we're not gonna,
my house flooded.
Listen, and there is this understanding of things.
That's a valid excuse. I can send you documentation.
We see the video. Also, shit happens to you, Ev. Like, just, I don't know any other person that, like, so much stuff happens to. And by the way, when you were giving us, like, all these shout outs of, like, oh my God, you guys have like a million things. You have so many things on your plate. And then you're like, oh, and by the way, my house flooded. And by the way, this happened. And it's like, by the way, somebody, what was that one thing where like somebody crashed into your car that was parked? I'm like, what? This girl doesn't need any more stuff in her life, but it just keeps coming.
What? One time it was like, guys, I'm like, my knee gave out. I'm just lying here. I'm like, and your resilience is like, you just keep on keeping on. I admire that. That's a leadership trait too. I mean, if I could be lying there, be like, yo, my leg just gave out, so I'm just chilling.
Thank you, but I didn't make, like, it's not self-manifesting this stuff. I'm not like creating this for like to stay busy or to look busy.
No. But like, we can't believe that stuff happens to you and that you're still here smiling.
Okay, so listen, we need to do this again, but let's do this really quickly. Let's play a quick game in seconds, okay? All right. Anna, we're going to go with you first, then Ginni will go around the clock, all right? Aisle or window?
Aisle.
Window.
Aisle. Pizza or burger?
Pizza.
Pizza.
Pizza. Fried or fresh?
Fresh.
Fresh.
Fresh. Lake or ocean? Anna, in seconds.
Lake.
Prince or Michael Jackson?
MJ.
Prince.
AM or PM?
Depends for what. PM. Oh my God. Okay.
That's a whole other point there.
Not there, but you clearly were. Okay.
Depends for what. That's it. Good night, guys.
Reppin is available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and all of your favorite podcast platforms. So subscribe and share.